Hey everyone, I'm Shelley from Get Started Fitness, and I have here my friend Nakaya, and today we are both going to be talking about the importance of stretching before and after exercise, the benefits and why you should be doing it. Okay. So here in front of us we actually have some tools that you can use for stretching. So we have some foam rollers. We've got two different types. So this one has a softer kind of outside, and then this one here, as you can see, it's got a bit of a harder, rougher edge. So this one we'll go in more depth about the difference between those two later. We have a yoga block, as it's called, but it can also be used for stretching as well in other ways. And would you like to tell us what that is?
This is kind of, I'm not sure what the name of it is, but you kind of use it.
Massage ball.
Massage ball, yeah, like a massage ball, more for particular muscles. So the rollers will stretch a large area. This, you put it like say on like your butt cheek or like under your like thigh and things like that.
Muscle that
yeah, like more to
instead of a whole muscle group.
Like to massage at a particular, like say you've got a tight hamstring.
Yeah.
It's good to get in that real specific area.
Yes. So we're going to go through how you can use some of these tools. We'll do a little bit of stretching while we're here as well, and we're also going to talk about the importance of stretching and why you should be stretching. So when it comes to any exercise whatsoever, it is very important to either do both a cool down and a warm up. Now, one of the reasons of this is because it actually gets the blood flowing through your whole body, which reduces the risk of injury, and we're going to go through that a little bit later too. You know, we've both had injuries before from not stretching properly, and Nicoles is going to tell us her story of that soon. But also not just that, it also increases our heart rate. It makes sure that our muscles are warmed up as well, not just our blood flowing through our body. It warms up our muscles and stretches them out a bit, so that when we start doing some hard-hitting exercises or exercises that are fast and moving our muscles quite a lot, there's less risk of us actually tearing them and so forth. So should we start with the yoga block?
Yes.
What are some exercises we can do?
With the yoga block, things that I like to do is obviously like a really simple one. I just stretch out my legs. So this is really good for your hamstrings. Just having that height, it will stretch out that muscle really nicely. I also use it for things like if you want to kind of stretch out your back, you can put it behind your back, and I just kind of like lean back to that arch.
You lay down, you pretty much lay down, and you have the yoga block here, and your back does like a little arch, and you can really feel your spine elongating.
So that's another good way. You can even use it, you can like put your leg here on the front of it and stretch out like with your other leg back. And that will stretch out again like kind of your hamstring area.
Yeah. And for when you're doing any of these stretches, particularly ones like this where you're kind of just holding the stretch, you want to be doing it for at least 30 seconds.
Yeah.
That really gets the optimized amount to really stretch out those muscles, get the blood flowing to that area, and to reduce that risk of injury like we said before.
I also find that doing a stretch, like say for instance you've got a goal. Like we both have a background of dancing, and so like a goal might be to like have a really amazing splits. So I always find it's good to do a stretch like say like this, and then do like a few different stretches and then go back to it.
Yeah, and
once your muscles are a bit more warm and stretched out, go back to it, and you'll find that it's easier, and you can actually elongate it
as well. So like even you'll notice yourself too if you do, like you said just now, you start off like this in the same day, within the same few minutes you've done your exercise like this, and then you've done a few other exercises which affect the same muscle groups. When you come back to it, this might have been painful already and already a little bit hard. Obviously there are a lot harder stretches than you can do than this one, but when you come back to it, you'll notice that you can actually do it like this, because now your muscles are warmed up and they can just stretch that way further than what they could before.
And saying that, just because it is only this certain height doesn't mean that you can't progress. It's as hard as you make it kind of thing. Like if you had two of these, you could stack them. And the higher you go, the deeper stretch. Obviously, be careful, because you don't want to stretch to a point that you're in pain. You want to stretch till you need to know your limits kind of thing. But if you have two, for instance, or you could even put it on, you could put it on anything. Like for instance, another great stretch is you'll put your leg up on a chair for more height. So there's, just because you don't have equipment doesn't mean you're limited to what stretches you can do.
Or even this, if you really want to, like I said, we started off here and then we moved to here, but then you could also move it to that one, and then really put it up there. as well.
Yeah.
And also in saying that, yes, you don't want to be putting yourself in any pain. The only exception is if you are trying to stretch for flexibility, not before exercise. Yeah. That little bit of pain threshold where you can feel the muscle stretching, but it's not hurting, is actually really good if you want to become more flexible. For sure. But for any other exercise, we don't want any.
Another one quickly I just thought of is that often if you lay with this, say for instance you lay like this, and you open up your hip and have your kind of your knee across it, and like kind of like bear your weight down a bit. It'll really open up your hip, and that is really good for mobility and just feeling comfortable kind of thing. But that's a really good hip opener.
Yeah. So this is probably a more amazing tool to be using before you exercise. Yeah. So this is going to help you stretch and really open up your muscles and do that. But if we go on to these ones, which we have right here, these are better, and same with that little ball, but these ones are better for after we exercise, because what they actually do is they help you roll out the muscles that you've been using that hurt after, like a recovery that hurt after you've exercised. So say you've been doing, a lot of squats or something, and your whole leg, your leg press, your whole leg, thighs, and your hamstrings and your quadriceps both hurt. You can put this underneath, and I'm just going to do one here. And you can hold on to yourself, and you can literally roll the foam roller underneath your leg. Now, when doing this, you'll feel that you can feel a lot of pressure where that muscle group is. You might not actually feel any pain the day that you've exercised, but if you go and do this again the next day, you'll notice that you can really feel it rolling out that muscle group that you used when you were exercising.
And also, more, kind of on this one, because it is... it's a more intense. It's a more intense roller. I use this once for like a stretch and roll class, and they were like, "Oh, like bring your own roll if you want." And I was like, "Great, I'm gonna go to Kmart. I'm gonna get a roller." And I was like, "This one looks so much cooler." I thought it looked way cooler than that one, and
it's actually
it's
really
so
intense.
painful. I ended up with bruises on my back, so like it's really intense.
That's good if you want like a deep muscle tissue kind of recovery exercises.
But don't start with that one.
No, and if you've never used one before, definitely go for the softer one first.
Yeah, for sure.
But you can do the exact same exercise that I was showing you underneath your leg, or any ones you can even like really push on it and roll the top of your thighs. You can use it on your arms. So whatever body parts you've worked out, you can use, but definitely start off with this. If you find that this isn't really working as much anymore, or you want a deeper roll, then you can go into that.
And it's the same idea with the ball also. It's the same rolling effect. So you can roll it on those areas. Also though, with the ball, I wouldn't put it at, like, say for instance, this would be for your softer areas of your body. So like your upper legs, or even your calves, and your butt kind of thing, and even on your back a little bit. But I wouldn't, if you have like a shin or something
areas,
like that, like don't use it there.
And
things like this, like you don't have to go to somewhere like Rebel. This was from Aldi. That was donated by my really cool cousin. This is from Kmart. So like, it doesn't cost. That is from Cotton On. Like, but you can get them from Kmart too.
Same with these mats. Like we can. This one looks really nice. Like this is my plain Jane Kmart one, but it's still amazing. It's really thick. Where did you get your mat from?
This is from Cotton On. It was actually an accident. I was getting it half price, and I thought it was a normal mat, but it was a premium mat, so that's why it's
really pretty.
It is really pretty, so I really like it. But you can literally get them for like $5 or $10.
Yeah, mine was only like $10, I think, because I got the thicker, quite thick mat. But you do have the option to get like the thinner ones for cheaper if you're on a budget, or the thicker ones if you're willing to spend a little bit more.
But you don't need. You can stretch with literally with no equipment at all. All these stretches that we've kind of shown, like with your legs and opening up your hips or your back and things like that, you don't need equipment.
No, you can literally just be doing some stretches for the same body parts by just reaching out and touching them here. Like your arms, you can even go up and back and beyond. So these are just some examples, but now that we've gone through some of the stretches and some of the equipment here, I want to talk about what happens when you don't stretch and some possibilities that happen when you don't stretch. So Nicoles here had a little bit of an accident because she didn't stretch. I'll let her tell you the story.
Yeah, so maybe about 5 years ago, I think, I only know this from Snapchat memories. I had a couple of years off netball. I had played netball my whole life. Went back my first game, first quarter. I jumped and came down and I ruptured my Achilles, which was my first kind of like major injury. I did stretch before the game, but I didn't stretch I stretch kind of like how I would like as if I'd been playing every week. I didn't like do like an extra. I didn't go that bit further because I was out of practice. Like I hadn't done a lot of training, hadn't played in a couple of years, like at all, like not even socially. And then did like some like that casual, like you go and you're like, oh, I'll touch my toe here and I'll do this, and you kind of do it and you're like, yeah, I'm all stretched, and then you jump on the court and yes, I ruptured my Achilles, and that was just from jumping. It was nothing out of the ordinary. It was just from a simple movement. And
which, how many people jump during exercise? Any exercise, even at the gym, you might be doing squat jumps.
Yeah.
So, even things like, and like Nicoles said, she hadn't played netball in a few years, but she has been, a very high up netball player prior to that. So she thought, oh no, it will be okay. But it's so important.
Yes, and I just my brain was kind of like, I know exactly what I'm doing. Like I was like, I don't need to prepare any different because even though I haven't played, it's embedded in my brain what I need to do. So I just kind of didn't do anything out of the ordinary after having a break, and I ruptured my Achilles, and it was a complete tear. And from there, I have never regained my full muscle. So I had to do like physio and things like that.
Strengthening
some
activities around your ankle.
And in turn, from what I know, this can happen quite often. With Achilles, if you've injured one, often the other one becomes quite weak.
Yeah, because it's because you're putting so much pressure on the other one now, because you don't want to be putting too much pressure on the injured one.
Exactly.
So then it's forced to hold a lot more weight than what usually is.
And I was in a movement for maybe like 4 months or something. Like it was like 4 months. Like it was a really long time. And I went like non-operative, so I was in a moon boot for that long, and I couldn't walk. So I did put all the pressure on my other leg,
to be able to just get around.
To just be able to get around. And so now they often get really tight. So my right one, where it actually snapped, is actually quite flexible. I don't have a lot of muscle, but my left one, it can get quite tight. But the same kind of pain.
Wow.
And that could easily, it could still have happened. But if I had taken like 10-15 minutes before my game,
less likely to happen,
100%.
or not as bad injury.
And it's really interesting because, like, even from us dancing, like always being told, like, warm up before you, like, make sure your body's warm, and it's these things that you hear over and over again, and you're just kind of like, yeah, no worries.
And even though you do it, it becomes a little bit mundane. Like, oh, I'll be okay. But that's what everyone thinks before any kind of injury. I'll be okay. And then things like that happen.
Yes, with dance steppers, I used to be like, if I stretch, I'll overthink it and I'll stuff up. Whereas now, after having that injury, I'm like, if I don't get my body warm, I'm actually
more
wobbly.
And
I have very flat feet, and I'm more, I bear my weight in the ball of my feet a little bit. So like I struggle to get my feet, even though I have flat feet, like I don't have a great arch, I find it hard to stabilize myself. So now actually I've worked out that if this is a bit off topic, but like I'll jump and then I'll actually like stamp my feet into the ground.
Instead of doing your proper heel to toe, or toe to heel, landing, you just go flat down.
I go flat, and then it kind of grounds myself, and then I feel more balance and things like that. So that's like a preparation. That's like more of the warm up side of things. But I also stretch my muscles, because I used to not really at a step fairs or competitions stretch my muscles beforehand. I used to just jump on stage, and that is literally when that is how accidents happen, accidents happen, how injuries happen. And it takes a bit of practice.
So now you say that now that this has happened, you definitely make sure that you're always warming up, always. And I tell my clients as well, usually within an hour we do not do a warm up and cool down, but I tell them to do it before they come into my lesson. Whether they do or not, it's a different story. But it's very important, and that's why when I teach classes, everyone has to do a warm up and a cool down before and after their class.
And the cool down is just as important.
It is.
Some people skip that step.
Yes, it actually brings your heart rate down at a steady pace. It helps so that you're not in obviously after you've exercised, you're going to be in pain the next day if you have DOMS. But in saying that, your pain will be a lot less the next day if you have warmed up and cooled down. And it also brings your blood flow back to a normal steady state as well, at a steady pace, instead of just stopping completely and just walking on with
and your
day.
muscles.
They like tense up.
That's another thing I've noticed. Like, for instance, like, and people are like, oh, don't get cold, and you're like, what? I was like, I don't need a jacket. I'm not cold.
Yeah, because
but
you've just sweated, so your body temperature's high.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
thing is that, you know, it's going to plummet quite quickly
Yeah.
because you haven't just eased back
Yeah.
into the normal
Yeah.
way of life
Yeah.
from
So,
exercise.
for instance, again, at a steppers, like we had a competition the other week where we had like a 3-hour gap, and it was really, it was a really long time, and we had a couple dances, and then we had like a 3-hour gap. And all well and good, bit boring, had games, whatever. But in that time, we only had like one dance left, but we had to wait all these hours until we did that dance. Within that time, my body had gone completely cold. It's still in winter, so it was like naturally it was colder in the air, but my body had gone completely cold. My muscles were tight. And then I found it hard to re-warm myself up.
Yeah.
But I needed to because my body had like just a short period of time. It could be 10-15 minutes. But once you actually let your body cool down, your muscles get tight. And if you don't cool them down and stretch them out after you exercise, that's when you're going to be
and they
in
go into
pain.
recovery mode. And when they're in recovery mode, they're in pain as well because they are, you know, if you're doing a muscle gain, you know, program, then they're growing or, you know, even if you're not, they're toning up. They're actually, when they're in recovery mode, they're in pain. So you need to do that warm up again to be able to get back into that space where they're stretchy again because you don't want them to pull or snap or anything.
And you'll be a lot more comfortable the next day too.
Yeah, and while you're doing the exercise.
Especially if you are doing like quite vigorous activity.
Yeah.
Like you're doing, say you've gone for a run and you're actually not a runner, but you've run for like 15 minutes or something like that. You need to cool down afterwards because otherwise you'll be able to barely walk the next day.
Yeah, that's right.
And especially with lifting weights and things like that. And it's not as like you can't just pull your leg up and be like, oh yeah, I do my cool down kind of thing. You need to do a proper cool down.
Yes, that's
where you actually feel it and make sure you think about what muscles you've used. Ideally do a full body stretch or cool down.
But mainly do the muscles that you've been using.
Yeah.
So if you know that you've used your biceps during that exercise, do the roller on your biceps. If you know that you've used your legs, like we were saying earlier, do the cool down on your legs. Like whatever body, like specific muscle too. Don't just do your whole, don't just do part of your arm because you're like, yes, I use my arm. Think about what muscle you use and cool down that specific muscle.
And don't forget that with some exercises you might think, oh, I'm doing squats. It's for my bum, like it's for a big bum. Don't forget that you are using your legs and also your back. And so you might think, oh, okay, like, you know, this is hard on my knees, but it's also using your ankle strength, your hip strength to stay stabilized and things like that. So you really need to think about what muscles are connected and what you've actually used to exercise.
You just gave me a good point as well. That's why it's so important. We forgot to mention not just like the stretching side of things. This is also part of your warm up and cool down, but the mobility side of things.
Yes.
So you want to make sure that your joints are nice and lubricated by doing your mobility movements before and after your exercise. Like if you're doing squats, you want to make sure you open up your hips and you can do some and you can do some like hip rolls and everything, and that obviously is very important as well. And that way you're not going to be in that pain in that joint area too.
I have another, it's a bit of a cheat to stretching, but I also have like a muscle gun. Don't know what the actual name is. That I used to call it a puzzle gun because I thought anyway.
The ones where you press on it and
it's electronic kind of thing. You charge them. I found after I had my whole Achilles ordeal and I went back to dancing, I struggled a little bit because I don't have that muscle backing my leg, and my body was not used to it. So I had this muscle gun and I would literally use it on my legs. All the muscles I knew I'd be stretching, like dancing is very lower body dominant. So you need that strength, you need that balance, you need that mobility. So I was using my muscle gun on my top of my thighs, on my quads and things like that. And that's what it's called, quads.
Yeah, quads.
Quads. I was trying to think, I was like, what is that muscle? You call them quads. And so I was using that on it, and it's basically it's like you could put like an attachment on
like a ball,
It's like a ball. I've also one that's a triangle and it's like a vibration, but it's basically like, it looks like a drill.
But it really gets in there too.
Yes.
And it really like massages.
It does.
And massaging helps as well.
And
if you can get someone to give you a massage 100%. Or go get a massage, or even if it's in a spot where you can reach yourself and you really and that would help with that too.
It's really good to relax and loosen your muscles, so it's great for recovery, but it's also really good to warm up because you still need to stretch, but it's almost like it does some of the work. It does a lot of the work for you because it can be quite aggressive. So it's like a quick, easy, like I don't have time to sit here for half an hour and stretch or 10 minutes to stretch. So I just whip, 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 and then I went to dancing. I felt like my muscles were already open.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is another good key, but I would use it in conjunction with stretching, not in place of stretching. Yes. Yes.
But we hope that this little video has helped you guys out and to learn about the importance of why you should be stretching before and after exercise. Yeah. We can post some more videos later. If you want to know more information, just add in the comments.
Or more ideas.
Or if you want some examples of how to use some of these in a bit more depth. But we hope that today's video has helped you guys. So thank you lots, and we will see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe and watch our other videos for more information on other amazing tips to be healthy. Bye!
Bye!